Extrude volume item of mesh menu is to generate a volume mesh by extruding a surface mesh in the specified direction. Let's take an example of a surface mesh on the XY plane. A volume mesh cannot be generated by extruding the surface mesh in the X or Y direction. In this case, therefore, the extruding direction should be chosen from Z or normal. It is also possible to designate the extruding direction by inputting or selecting a straight line. Let's take the case of simply choosing the direction. Choose Z for the extruding direction. Set the extruding height to 10 and the number of divisions to 8. Select the surface mesh and click Generate button. A volume mesh is generated. Undo the mesh generation for further demonstration with normal direction. There remains the surface mesh. Change the direction to normal. Select the surface mesh. Click Generate button. The newly generated volume mesh is the same as, in the case of extruding in Z direction, because the normal direction is identical to Z direction. The positive sign of normal direction is determined by the node numbering within an element. In order to reverse the extruding direction, click Reverse button. The volume mesh is regenerated with the reversed direction. At the same time, the extruding height gets a minus sign. Click Reverse button again to recover the volume mesh, extruded in the positive normal direction. Let's examine the case with the duplicated surface mesh on the YZ plane. Neither Y nor Z axis cannot be set as the extrusion direction for this case. The extruding direction should be chosen from X or normal. We may select the surface mesh prior to setting other options. Choose X for the extruding direction. Click Generate button. A volume mesh is generated. Undo the mesh generation to try the normal direction. Set the extruding direction to normal. Select the surface mesh and click Generate button. This shows that the positive sign of the normal direction is the same as that of the X direction. Next example is the case of volume mesh generation by extrusion of a curved surface mesh. Set the division height to 4, the number of divisions to 6, and the extruding direction to Z. The element type option is hexahedron or prism. Select the surface and click Generate button. The generated mesh is composed of 6-node prism elements, which can be obtained by extruding 3-node triangular elements. Let's undo the mesh generation and change the extruding direction to normal. Select the surface mesh and click Generate button. The volume mesh is generated in the positive normal direction. Click Reverse button to alter the sign of the normal direction. The mesh is regenerated on the opposite direction. At the same time, the extruding height gets minus sign. Undo the mesh generation and try other element type. Set the element type to tetrahedron. Select the surface mesh and click Generate button. The generated volume mesh is filled with 4-node tetrahedral elements. Let's take the case of the surface mesh with 4-node quadrilateral elements. Retain all the options used in the previous case. Select the surface mesh and click Generate. The generated volume mesh is filled with 8-node hexahedral elements. Lastly, let's replace the surface mesh with 8-node quadrilateral elements. Select the surface mesh and click Generate button. The generated volume mesh is filled with 20-node hexahedral elements. As shown in this demo, the type of the volume element is restricted also by the element type of the surface mesh. This is the end of the tutorial for Extrude volume mesh generation.